Dyslexia is often associated with poor spelling, low decoding skills, or a difficulty with accurate word recognition, but many people with dyslexia have average or even above average intelligence. People with dyslexia can be gifted in math, science, fine arts, journalism, and other creative fields. Some famous people with dyslexia are Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, and Winston Churchill. These strengths are challenged sometimes by noticeable weaknesses, though. October is National Dyslexia Awareness Month, and on today's Engage Chesterfield, we have Dr. Zenia Burnett, Coordinator for Special Education, and Dr. Samantha Hollins, Director of the Department of Special Education for Chesterfield County, to talk about dyslexia and Dyslexia Awareness Month. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us, Amy. We're excited to be here.
We're glad you're here. So tell me a little bit about dyslexia. Is it something that you're born with? Do you get it? What is, how is someone dyslexic?
So it's not something that you just simply get or you acquire, or a teacher can, actually give it to you because they don't provide adequate instruction. It's neurobiological in origin. A person sometimes is it may run in their family. So actually, a person is born with dyslexia. Based on some of the things that you've described, a person would have to be assessed in order for us to understand if they would have those characteristics that you described.
So what are some of the impacts on dyslexia that you would see in a classroom or in a student's learning?
So for instance, dyslexia is basically a poor manipulation of words. It's a word reading or phonological processing or phonological awareness related disability. So a student may very well have poor spelling. They may have problems decoding. They may have problems with manipulating words. They also may have problems with fluency and so forth. And as they progress through the reading stages, of course, it will affect other areas of reading.
So you mentioned earlier the being identified. What is that process like?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Amy. I think for many of the folks we work with, both on the educational side, teachers, principals, staff, as well as parents, it can be a little bit confusing because dyslexia is technically not one of the IDEA disability categories that we reference. And that's important to note because when we find a student eligible for special education services, they are usually identified with a disability area, maybe a primary. They also may have other disabilities that may be comorbid to their primary classification. So dyslexia is a disability that we obviously know about. We do a lot of research and resources around, but typically when students are either diagnosed by an outside professional or we assess a student within the school system, they typically end up being identified under what we call a specific learning disability, which is one of the hallmark disability labels from the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
And speaking of acts, there have been some recent legislation passed through the House bill. I think it was House Bill 1265. Can you speak to that? What does that mean? How does that impact how we serve our students in Chesterfield, how we support students with a disability across the board in terms of dyslexia?
Sure. So there are a couple of pieces of legislation. So this one in particular basically mandates that anyone that's up for initial certification or recertification in the state of Virginia must take dyslexia modules, basically go through some information, lots of great information provided by the Virginia Department of Education related to dyslexia, characteristics of dyslexia, also how to probably look for signs of dyslexia, and then in terms of what type of instruction is probably pertinent or great for students to be able to advance or move the needle for those students. And then there's another piece attached to that as well. Also, school divisions must also have a dyslexia advisor in their districts in order to be able to serve the district, but also a point person to answer questions related to dyslexia. And then there's some new legislation as well related to dyslexia. All colleges and universities must also ensure that anyone matriculating through coursework must make sure that reading specialists have a course in dyslexia and also structured literacy.
And Amy, this is so important. Dr. Burnett mentioned those modules that the Virginia Department of Education has promulgated, and those are for folks who are seeking relicensure to teach in the state. But something we've decided to do here in Chesterfield is to push out those modules to every special education teacher, every coordinator of special education, as well as administrators at the school level, with the hope that folks will view those modules and really become to develop an awareness of dyslexia much earlier than their licensure approval timeline might start. So that's a really nice kind of tier 1 resource for our folks. And then Dr. Burnett has worked with staff to really cultivate some additional resources around things like structured literacy, around multisensory reading instruction, and done that really in a nice collaborative partnership with our folks in teaching and learning, especially with the onset of the new literacy plan here in Chesterfield County.
Certainly, we do have a big event coming up at the end of the month, which we're excited about, working with the FACE office and our special education team and the literacy team to really kind of connect. And I know that there are some events that are going to be, or some classes that are going to be offered in supports. But October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. And just in terms of, as a parent, if I want to know more, if I want to get connected to some other groups, like what specifically, you know, we're doing a lot in Chesterfield, where you would suggest I kind of dig a little bit deeper to know more?
Sure. Well, first, of course, we want parents to join us for our first annual literacy fair in October 29th. While this is a joint venture with the 3 departments, FACE, Teaching and Learning, and also the Department of Special Education, we're going to have lots of vendors, the International Dyslexia Association, the Virginia branch. We're also going to have Decoding Dyslexia Virginia with us. We're also going to have other vendors that will be able to speak to the work that's done surrounding dyslexia, but also for struggling readers. So that's one. But also within our district, we provide lots of background information and data and lots of professional development for our teachers, not just special education teachers, but all of our teachers. And we provide resources and parents that contact us as well. When they come through your office for information, we don't just provide them information related to websites and so forth. We actually provide them hard, concrete literature related to dyslexia. And if we can, we sit down with them to process that information. So we want to be the source for Chesterfield County Public Schools, but we also have partnerships with surrounding resources, for instance, like the International Dyslexia Association, the Virginia branch, and Decoding Dyslexia, Decoding DDVA, which is Decoding Dyslexia Virginia.
That's really exciting, and I know that there's so much work to be done, and it's exciting though that we have these resources and these opportunities and these partnerships. Thank you both so much for all you do to serve our students and their families in our school division, and thank you for joining us on Engage Chesterfield.